conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music, and gaming. Only on Hungama's Women Game Changers podcast.
Hi, welcome to Hungama Game Changers, a space where we celebrate women in entertainment who have not just excelled in their field, but expanded what that field looks like for everyone who comes after them. And today's conversation is with someone who's done exactly that with precision, persistence, and a very clear sense of her sound. I'm speaking with Anuradha Pal, globally recognized as one of the most accomplished and versatile tabla virtuosos of our times, spanning, I think, classical music, fusion, contemporary. She's also, in the Limca Book of Records as the world's first professional female tabla player, and has been awarded by the president for the First Ladies Awards, Bharat Ki Lakshmi, and so many other citations across her career. But I think what stood out for us was not just the scale of the work, Anuradha that you're doing, but also the range. Over 40 countries, 5,000 concerts, collaborations that have moved from deeply classical Indian content and compositions to jazz, flamenco, global orchestras, and performing at Darbar, but also Woodstock. I think also doing sort of massively huge shows like creating music or curating music rather for Dior. And you've done this alongside, I think, the creating of platforms that have been really empowering for a lot of women. And I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you. And I would love for you to sort of, maybe start by telling us a little bit how you got started at a time where we had no women following this particular aspect of music being percussion.
Well, I basically started, I don't come from a musician family, but yes, there was a lot of culture, education, music, all that, around me. So I grew up literally in a house bursting of science, arts, music, sculpture, you name it. Every art form, every science form, every scientific form was there somewhere through my parents and through my grandparents who were educationists. My father, of course, was a great doyen of the pharmaceutical industry. So he brought in the scientific and the very analytical approach, which he, I think, passed on to me. And that's how probably I use a lot of scientific approach to tabla, especially in the creation of sound. The way I look at sound is not just you play a dha and you sing sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa, but it's about approaching the sound in a different way. And then my mother was a well-known painter and a writer. So she brought in that element of how creativity is about first harnessing yourself.
Yeah.
And the discipline that it requires and the sacrifice it takes to get there. So, so I think with that background, I started singing. So I started learning classical vocal when I was 5 or 6 years old, and tabla because I seemed to have a sense of rhythm, because when I was singing, I could actually say what tal it was without being told. So somebody said, you seem to have a natural flair, so learn. But of course, he was prepared to teach me because I'm a girl.
Yes.
So they refused. And the teacher who used to come to teach my brother, he flatly refused that, tum ladki jaat ho, tumse nahi ho paega. These were his words. So I didn't say anything, because I always believe that your work should speak louder. And so I just, on my own, I played and learned on my own, just observing my brother. And then when the teacher came one day to the house, and earlier than he was supposed to come, because normally I would finish before he would come, so that, he wouldn't see me. And then he came earlier and he saw me, like, how did you play? How do you play? And I said, well, you refused to teach me, but I learned on my own. So then, of course, the process started. But even before
Can I
that,
ask you how old you were?
5, 6, 5. I was actually about 5 or 6 when I first met Ustad Zakir Hussain. And that was probably a reason also why I got so drawn to the tabla. Because it was like he was, my grandmother passed away, and on her anniversary we had a concert of Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma, Pandit Jasraj ji, both accompanied by Ustad Zakir Hussain. And so I was just ambling around and went into the green room, and I saw the tablas lying there. And maybe he had gone to the washroom or something. So I just started playing. मुझे क्या मालूम उस्ताद जाकिर हुसैन का तबला है. So I just started playing. So he came back and he took me in his lap and he said, "बजाओगी?" I said, "हाँ बजाऊंगी." So मुझे क्या मालूम, like, it's such a great man and he's taking me in his lap now. And then he made me play. So शायद वो जो कहते हैं ना, वो आशीर्वाद तब मिल गया मुझे.
Correct.
एक संजोग की बात है कि वो आशीर्वाद मिल गया.
Right.
Because he went on later to become my guru.
Yes.
But it was something which probably, and then when I heard him play, I was blown off. And so I decided I want to learn. But like I said, the teacher wouldn't teach me. So I learned on my own. I started playing. And then I was 9 years old when I started performing on Doordarshan and television and all that, on radio and all those, and small concerts here and there, and winning all the competitions in school and colleges and all the way through. I mean, obviously later when I went to college. But I think that's when I was about 13, 14 is when I started accompanying a lot of masters, playing with them, learning how, the whole thing, how to, जो संस्कार होते हैं संगीत के, वो संस्कार सीखना पड़ता है. So of course I started learning from Ustad Allah Rakha Sahab and Zakir Hussain ji when I was about 11, and then that journey evolved, because learning from such great masters meant that you had to really rise up to that level of perfection that they demanded. And that was exactly what I wanted, because actually when I went to them, where I was in a green, I mean, they were in a green room, and then like so Abaji called me home. He met me over there in his concert, and he said, I see you at every concert. What's your name? You're hiding behind the tabla bag, because I was so small, and I was hiding behind the tabla bag and observing him. And he called me and he said, "What's your name? I see you everywhere, but you don't ever come and meet me." And I said, "I'm learning tabla. I'm playing. So come and play for me then." So the next day I went and played for him. And he probably read it in my eyes that I wanted to learn from him. So he started teaching immediately. I didn't even say anything. And he started teaching, and Zakir Bhai started teaching. And it was just something that started. And obviously Zakir Bhai knew that I was the same girl.
The girl that had sat in his godi.
Who had sat in his godi and उन्होंने हाथ रखा था. तो वो एक आशीर्वाद पहले से बना. And that's how that whole journey started. And then I told Abbaji, I said, you slap me, you hit me, you do whatever, but make me the best, make me good enough to be called worthy of, a worthy disciple. So I think when he saw that surrender in a 10.5-year-old child, coming from her own, without any prompting from the parents or any support, I think he was very blown away. I mean, he immediately came and he hugged me and he said, "Beta, तुम्हारे संस्कार इतने अच्छे हैं कि तुम बहुत दूर जाओगी." So that was the thing. He said, तुम्हारे संस्कार बहुत अच्छे हैं and तुम बहुत दूर जाओगी and मैं तुम्हें सिखाऊंगा. So of course, so that started that journey of pushing myself. Of course, I had to go through a lot of challenges, a lot of discrimination, because I didn't come from a musician family. Now, I'm just telling you, I just told you the good part. But the sad part was that because I didn't come from a musician family, and unfortunately, there's a lot of nepotism in every field. And in the music field, particularly because it's a gharana system, comes from a lineage. You're 5th generation, 9th generation, 20th generation of musician. And here I am a nobody. And that to a girl in a male-dominated field. So 2 negatives against me, and solid negatives. Like, you can't imagine, even till this date, after
Yes.
established, it still is something held against me that I don't have a lineage. I don't come from a lineage, so as if I don't have a right to belong. And so I said, well, I'll make make my work do the talking, because there's nobody else who's going to help me other than my own hard work and perseverance.
How old were you, Anuradhaji, when you realized that you were stepping into a space that wasn't open to women or wasn't really for you? Wasn't
I was 5 years old when I
when
had
you were rejected?
the first rejection was at 5 years old. When I was told, ये तुम लड़की जाओ तो तुमसे नहीं होगा, 5 or 6 years old. So that young, and it's sad, but it's hard to break hard glass ceilings. It may appear like we've moved into the 21st century, but
Yeah.
things are still sometimes living in a different time.
At what point did you start feeling like you were accepted as a serious practitioner and artist?
I think I was accepted. I mean, about acceptance, I kind of made sure that I had so many different things happening. And that's why it meant a lot of sacrifice from my end. The sacrifice was no time for fun, no time for friends, no time for social life, no time for partying. So that was a personal sacrifice I had to make, because I knew that unless I put in 500% of effort, I'm not going to get that 100% of outcome, not result, but outcome. The result might still be 50% because I'm still dealing with mindsets. But
Yeah.
at least my outcome must be 100%. For that, I have to put in 500% input. You getting what I'm saying?
So you felt like you spent a lot, you had to put in a lot more to prove yourself based on gender as well? Even
course.
after you had already, even once you were being accepted by really the first family of percussion in India?
Well, I was not only accepted by them, but I was also playing with great masters.
Yes.
I was playing with, with Hariji, with Ustad Sultan Khan Sahab, with everybody. And I must tell you that a very interesting thing, that I was performing in Kota, and I'll narrate this incident for you. And I was maybe 17, 18 years old. And it was a concert for the Sangeet Natak Academy with Ustad Sultan Khan.
Right.
And so I walked in with the tablas. Okay, now just picture this. I walk in with the tablas, and there's a murmur in the audience because they're seeing a young girl coming on the stage. So they thought maybe I'm just a helper or whatever, going and
Right.
singing. And then there I go and I sit on the tabla, and I start playing, and then like this audience gets some, yeah, like the murmuring, who's she? What is she? So, and then Ustad Sultan Khan, he used to call me Karishma, Wonder Girl.
Right.
So he saw the murmur, and he saw the kind of skepticism in the audience. Oh, does she really know how to play? Who is she? I never heard her name.
Right.
Because the organizer had not even put my name out for the fear that, I may not be accepted. So he didn't even put my name out in the invite or the invitation card. So it was only written Ustad Sultan Khan, but no tabla player's name. They didn't even make my announcement, the name. So to that extent, they were, I was daba ke rakho. And then he saw me, and so Sultan Khan Sahab looked at me and he said, Karishma, bata do tum kya cheez ho? Because he could see the skepticism in the audience. And then I went all out and I played. Okay. And I played a nice thing. And the audience got up and they came running towards me. So I thought they're coming to hit me, or because the way they were running like that, you don't see an audience running and you're sitting on the stage, with nothing, no place to hide, right? So I only had a hammer, which we used to tune the tabla. So I just took that like a Jhansi ki Rani, and I went, okay, so let me just hold this, to prevent people from hitting me. But actually, they were not coming to hit me. They were coming to see whether I was for real, whether I was some fairy or whether I was some, just a kuch like किसी के अंदर
back or
हाँ कोई भूत नहीं चढ़ जाता है किसी के अंदर.
oh no.
हाँ, so like they thought that maybe I was not like I was a man but looking like a girl, so they were coming to check out like am I really a girl or am I a boy, and like ऐसे करके. And then I said well, so then they said बजाइए थोड़ा और बजाइए. So like they were coming to check me out, and once they were satisfied that okay I was genuinely what I said I was, then they won't leave me for 3-4 hours. We played the concert and it went on and on. The next morning there was the entire village, the entire town came to my hotel room, and they're like make a beeline outside my hotel room कि हमको वो देवी का दर्शन लेना है.
Oh my God.
So, and I'm like, I open the door where sleepy eyed like this because I see this all noise in the, what's the noise about in the hotel? So I open my eyes like that, and those people in the passway, in the passage, they see me. Ha ha ha! Oh, Devi ji ne ka room hai, wo hai. So I said, who's Devi ji? So this is up. So I said,
I think that is both a terrific story, but also just a terrible reflection of the disbelief, the concept that a woman can't play like this, the unacceptance that a woman, also that your first instinct when they approached you was that they were coming to hurt you. That must have been also terrifying.
It was because I'm sitting cross-legged. I can't get up and run. And where
Right.
will I go? And how far will I go? Right? And I'm sitting next to my tabla cross-legged. So it's not very, the wires and the mics and everything around. It's not very easy to just get up and scoot. So, but yes, that and then the love that was showered by that very audience,
Right.
that dismissed me. And the way till this date, if you go to Kota and you ask them, there was a concert of a young girl, and if that person has ever heard classical music, he will remember me.
Really?
Because it shook the mind out of that kind of whatever mindset that they had. And similar experience happened with me when I was performing in Mahakaleshwar temple, where I was when I was performing there was a the artist that I was playing with, they did their alap, and then they told the senior tabla player to play first, and then he played, and then they told me to play. So once I started playing, now this concert was in the open air, in the Maidan of the
Right.
Kaleshwar temple. At that time, they didn't have this corridor and all, so it was very nice and open with the. So I start to play, and the birds on the tree, which is a beautiful banyan tree right next to the temple, they start to chirp. 9:30 at night, birds don't chirp.
Right.
So to chirp. And then as I came into my climax of playing and I was about to end, those birds flew, and just at the climax, they put leaves on me, just on one side of the stage. Now, this was clearly a God's blessing. I really look at it at that. And then, of course, I had some incredible experiences after that, which made me realize that whatever discrimination, nepotism, negativity, skepticism, whatever other stuff I was going through, God was with me. I didn't have a lineage. I didn't have anybody else. I didn't have a social media promotion manager.
Yeah.
I didn't have a PR agent. I didn't have any of that. But what I had was God's blessings. And I had a couple of other experiences, very, very personal, which made me realize that the big man up there is watching out for me.
Tell me, you trained under legends, right? Ustad Zakir Hussain, Ustad Ala Rakha. You were even at some point as a teenager called Lady Zakir Hussain, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
How do you process that? Does it feel like validation or pressure?
Validation to a certain extent, pressure, of course, because you have to keep living up to that title, and to when Ustad Zakir Hussain himself said, a couple of years ago, there was a very nice article in the Hindustan Times where he was interviewed, and they said to him, that, and he said, there are, I'm not the best tabla player. There are 15 tabla players as good as me. And then he named me in that, or some other article when he also talked of the kind of struggle that I've gone through and the way I've opened out the field for others and changed mindsets. So I think obviously it's a pressure of sorts, but I look at it more that, okay, chalo, mehnat kiya to kisi ne usko samjha.
Yeah.
So it's encouraging. I think awards and validations are always encouraging, and I always thank the media. This is one thing I'd like to definitely say, that the media has been very supportive of me. The press, the media, every time, and I've never had a PR person. I've never had a manager for all that, as a lot of things happen these days. I've never paid any press in my life, and they have always supported me. And I think that credit goes to them for seeing, for being a part of my journey, and for encouraging me in my journey. A
No,
huge
but also,
part.
Anuradha ji, see, I said this to you even just before we started. The reality is that, as people, especially of our vintage, um, you were, um, what was incredible was this person who looks like me, is similar to my age, and she's doing something I've never heard of. So the reality is that I think, even from the media point of view, and I spent many years even in print, the difference was that you were doing something, that you were literally chalking your own path. And then you were doing this, with such incredible stalwarts. How do you create an identity of your own when you are trying very hard to prove yourself and prove yourself worthy, and have these gigantic people on who are propping you up on their shoulders? I mean, full marks to them. But how do you create an identity of your own in that?
I think that's such. You have to have that ability to take a risk. You have to have that ability to be your own person. To be your own person. And for that, you have to be superbly confident of what your art or your craft is. So I dedicated a lot of time to practice. Years and years of dedication of practice, chintan manan. So introspection, because it's not just a physical activity. It's about thinking about your art. And it's about thinking about how you can redefine it. Because they're such stalwarts that actually the weight of what they've already done is so much. What will you do which is greater? You cannot do anything greater because they've done everything. Especially if I look at even the first family of tabla, they've done everything, the A to Z of tabla. Now, what am I going to do? Right? So I have never copied them.
Yeah.
Even Ustad Zakir Hussain, if you look at any interview of mine or any sound of if you look at the video of mine with him when I was 15 years old playing with him, right? The first thing that you will yourself say is your sound is exactly like him, right? How do you have your sound and your balance like him?
Yeah.
Right? If you look at that, and he used to always admire that how have you been able to get that, right? And again, that came with a lot of introspection and observation. Very, very strong observation. I don't know if you have seen, there's a video of mine, that's a video of Birju Maharaji and Zakir Hussain that's
Right.
going around, where you'll see me sitting at the back of Zakir Hussain ji. And from the back of his, right, literally from his shoulder, when I can only see a little bit of his fingers, I'm struggling to see his fingers at the back. But you can see I'm only focused on seeing the pictures of the fingers. I'm not looking at the audience. I'm not bothered about anything else, but I'm only focused on my goal. So once you're focused on your goal, that's one thing. Secondly, I always had this thing that I never want to ape him. I don't want to ape anybody. I want to be my own person. And I think that came because one, my mother being a very great artist, a painter and a writer, Hungama Pal was her name. She inspired me a lot to think a lot on my own, like reading books of Van Gogh, seeing Monet, seeing Pissarro, Picasso, and M.F. Hussain ji coming to my house because he was my guru, my mother's guru, and me literally being born in front of him, and the blessings that I got of, doing his seva also. So the conversations that I would have with him, and he would always tell me, and that's how it inspired him to take me for, doing the Gajgamini background.
Yes.
Because in fact Ustad Zakir Hussain was asked, I told him, why didn't you ask Ustad Zakir Hussain? He said, no, you have gone through the struggle of a woman, of a girl in a male dominated field. You know how it pains, you know where it hurts, and and you have dealt with it only through your hard work, not by lowering your ethics, not by in any manner doing things that can be called marketing or whatever, but
Right.
true talent. And that is why he engaged me to do the Gajgamini background score, which is the first time when they did when an entire background score was done on tabla and voice, and went on to win a lot of accolades at the Cannes Film Festival.
Anuradha, you've told us about some of the blessings, the bouquets. What about the moments that you did feel excluded? Not because of your ability, but because of where you came from or because what you weren't. Whether it was legacy or gender, what about those? And in that moment, um, what about like peers? Were they threatened by you because they thought that they had a God-given right to be the best in the next generation? What about that?
You answered the question.
Right.
And you know the answers.
Right.
Right. And obviously all this still happens. Nothing's changed. All that has happened is that they kind of got used to me being there. And I think a lot of the peers also admire the fact that I have tried to expand the repertoire of the tabla. And I think that's where they come from. They admire me. Earlier, maybe they felt whatever, but now they also admire me for doing these things. Like, for example, my effort is now to not just, like, of course, I love accompaniment, I love collaborating with different artists, and I would continue to do that because that gives my energy a different channel, a different outlet, a different focus, but I also use my thoughts to think of storytelling on tabla, for example. Right now, storytelling on tabla is something that I wanted, which happened to me when I was in the first year of, or the second year of college, or third year of college, is when my college principal pushed me on the stage to perform on college day. He was very proud of me being a classical musician performing around the world, and he said, "You performing all around the world, you should perform here." I said, "Sir, they're listening to MTV and all this pop and all. Where does the tabla fit in this? So there's no scope. Why do you want me to get booed?" So he said, no, 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 you have to perform 5 minutes to 5 minutes. Now, I thought of that time a story, which was something from my own life, because I was performing early, since I was 9. So I
Right.
had to get up early morning, go to school, and then there were times I was sleepy, and I'm telling my mom, let me sleep. And she's like, Utho, dekho, bus aa gayi, jaldi jao, all that. And she's getting angry at me, and finally she sends me to school. So that same story, I put it into the tabla language, and I made a story on the spot. And those my college friends loved it because it was a story they could relate to.
Right.
It was something close to their own experiences, and Like that, I have created, that's sort of started the tabla sing stories, that approach. And then as I went along, I made it a combination of a jugalbandi between the contemporary and the
Right.
right? The traditional and the contemporary. Because since I have learned the traditional classical music, I didn't want to restrict myself to that. I wanted to use that as a foundation to grow my wings to work in other areas and to also find my own voice and do the storytelling in a different way. So use that as a base to grow, you know.
Right.
So that's when I started using, I created this whole thing of two tablas, right? Of playing two tablas and making them have a dialogue between a contemporary and traditional.
Right.
And of course now it, I started this way back in 2003, and now it's become, everybody's copying it, which is
Right.
nice, and so I guess that's how my peers have responded, to answer your question, that they have picked out some of these things, and they tell me also, see, आप हमको inspire करते रहते हो, हम लोग कुछ, आप कुछ नया नया करते रहते हो, तो हमको रास्ते मिलते हैं. But that apart, I think the main thing is also, like, for example, when I'm doing this storytelling, and I did, so that led to tabla sing stories, which again, I have sort of over the years, it has grown. I keep trying to evolve it. Then, of course, came in Stree Shakti. But
Yeah.
of course, when I was in college, I started, I must tell you, since Hungama is into the music distribution business, I must tell you, my music label is Sur or Saz. Okay.
Right.
That's a music label that I founded when I was in first year college. So I was an entrepreneur right then, because when I realized that the world is going digital.
Okay.
So
That's early.
I have kind of had a little bit of interest in technology from the beginning. And I said, okay, the world is going digital. And so I founded my events company and a music label, so in the first year of college. And
Would have been in the late 90s.
yes, that was 1999.
Yeah. Wow. That's the
2000.
year Hungama was founded.
That's the, yeah, exactly.
Hungama was founded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember meeting Somini and she telling me, man, you're ahead of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she said, how do you know that this is coming? And I said, I don't know, but I think this is, so she said, you're ahead of your time. Because at that time I said, this is going to happen. We're going to get digital and we're going to grow it like this. So
now you didn't just succeed individually, right? You created Stree Shakti. You just mentioned that it was the first all-woman kind of, Hindustani Carnatic ensemble that focused so much also on the musicians, the instruments. I'm gonna ask, did that come out of opportunity or did that come out of a lack of opportunity?
both. It came out of that realization that the field is so hard for women.
It is.
And it came out of the realization that um, you got to do something to help women musicians. And there's also that streak of wanting to do something for society that comes from my grandparents, because they did a lot for society. And
Your education.
in education, when they
Otherwise.
founded 40 schools all over India, and they gave every single school to the village. Didn't keep a single thing. My grandfather slept on the footpath, and they built the New Era School, which is the iconic schools, which still run today. But he didn't keep a single penny for himself. He gave it all to society. He gave 200 bighas of land to society because he wanted the farmers to have it. And so
No, and as somebody who comes from a family of educationists, I know how involved and hard it is to run and set up schools. It's exhausting and it takes personal passion.
Yes, and my grandfather had that. He was, in fact, awarded the Padma Shri for his contribution to education. M.T. Vyas was his name, Maganlal Tribhuvandas Vyas. So, yeah, so basically, um, coming to your question about Sri Shakti,
Yeah,
the my actually, if you look at it, my grandmother on my father's side was also a Sri Shakti, if I might say so, because when my father was 1 year old is when the partition of the country happened, and
right,
his father, my grandfather, was a major in the Indian Army, and he
right,
had been just killed in the war. So when my father had to be leaving during partition, had to leave from
right.
Pakistan. They were in Pakistan,
Yeah,
it is now Pakistan. So when they had to leave and come back to India, that's when he slept literally on the footpath. My grandmother, despite coming from such a rich family, they were on the street, living in refugee camps,
yes,
trying to do whatever they could, and it was that time that when a lot of scholarships helped my father achieve and become the youngest production manager at the age of 23, in a big pharmaceutical company with no backing, nothing. But his mother brought in the 5 kids through the partition into India. So
yeah,
she was the true Stri Shakti. Imagine raising them
yeah.
in all that
No, and
situation of killing and
you're trying to,
turmoil.
you lived this sort of lavish life in Lahore or whatever, even my grandmother, but come across and you are nobody. You have
You're
no
nobody, nothing.
standing,
You
you
have
don't have a
nothing.
home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think somewhere that had was there in the genes, but it also came from the fact that there was so much of I saw very clearly that okay, people are praising me, they're saying wow 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 wow, all that, but they are not giving me opportunity.
right.
Or if they give me opportunity, they don't pay me properly. If they
Yeah.
if they give me an opportunity, they don't put my name properly, or they turn my sound down, you know, or
Is
they,
that?
yeah, they did all funny things. So they turn my sound down, and so I would have to underplay myself. Not if Because if I play properly, they'll definitely not call me next time. So if I play well, they won't call me. So I have to underplay myself so that they would call me. And then I said, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I'm beating my
I
own
have
time.
to say that is just that really cuts close to the heart because that's a lot.
Yeah, and a lot more that I can't even speak about. uh you know but I went through that, and then I went through it very quietly, because I'm not a person who makes a scene or talks about things, but negative things particularly, because I
Right.
believe that there's so much negativity in the world. You just got to spread a little positivity. That's your
Right.
responsibility. So I started doing these things, and then when I realized that okay, there is a situation like this, so let me try and get other women artists together. And I would ask everybody, do you have any women disciples? And everybody would draw a blank. So I would say, no, no, but you have this male, and they would not even sometimes teach their own daughters. So you can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was unfortunately there. Like even my own guru's daughters were not taught by him, right? So, and they would tell me कि तुमने कैसे कर लिया मालूम नहीं, हमको तो नहीं सिखाया. So, so obviously it meant a lot from me,
Right.
and I had to, in a sense, uh, learn to not speak, learn to not say, but I would keep my, there was a, but so coming to Sri Shakti, my thought was very clear that let us try to get a group together that gets deserving women together to perform, because women need to be represented, women need to be performing, they also need a fair chance. And my mother wrote a very beautiful one line poem, and she was a poet as well. So she wrote, I am woman, Let me think. Waiting to be, standing still, waiting to be. I'm not getting the thing right now, but I'll try to remember that. But anyway, so so that's when I wrote this Stree Shakti. So idea of Stree Shakti essentially is that I wanted Hindustani and Carnatic music to come together. There was this whole concept, in my heart, very, very close to my heart, and that's patriotism. Is something that's very, very strong in me. If you come to my house, you'll always see a flag here, and it's not from the time when Modi ji launched the Har Ghar Tiranga. It's been there from the beginning, since I'm born, that we've had a flag at our house, and twice in a year it's hoisted, and otherwise it's always there, in full mast. So anyway, so Stree Shakti, I wanted it to be a percussion led band, because that's the unique part is that it's percussion led, it's Hindustani and Carnatic, and it's all women, and it's folk music, classical music, fusion. So I didn't want to leave out any genre. I wanted representation from all women. And that is why over the years, I've been able to get in over 100 women to perform in Sri Shakti. And that is the interesting part, because most of the bands have set or the same numbers, the same band members that perform. But I one or two core members, and then I would get in artists. Let's say if I'm performing in, the local artists, I wanted to promote the local artists. So, a lot of the, I would go to Manipur and I would get in a Manipur dancer to perform with us.
Right.
Or I would go to Aurangabad and I would get a dholki player to perform with us. I would go to South India and get a Thavil player from Chennai to perform with us. So idea was that the local talent also gets represented, and the women, sometimes the families of these women, they would sometimes tell me that no, we can't send the girl. Who will cook for us? Was the question. So I said, I will pay extra. You order from outside, you get it. I will pay extra for that, but allow them to come and perform. And okay, 2 days only, and so much more you have to pay. Okay, fine. Now, the thing was, this was a very close passion for me, that okay, I wanted this, and I'm so happy that now it has led to so many women coming into this field. They're getting their recognition, and it has inspired people all across, not only women but even men. Now men, young people, youth from diverse backgrounds, not from musician families, are also getting into music. And they always tell me that, because of you, that you could do it. So we thought, okay, now somebody has opened the field for us, so maybe now we can step in, because until then it was closed.
So, Radhaji, tell me about imposter syndrome. I mean, you obviously have an inherent innate talent. That you were doing this at 5 and 9 and 13 and 15. And, you got validation coming from such great quarters. Does imposter syndrome still become a thing?
It always has been with me. Everybody has tried to copy me, but that's okay. I guess that's a sign of flattery. And I remember way back, I was performing in Bhopal, and a person, and I was staying in a hotel, which was so I was crossing the corridors, just walking past, and I hear a tabla, and I stop to hear, and it sounds very familiar. So I knocked the door, and the person said, "हाँ, क्या चाहिए आपको?" So I said, "Oh," the person was playing on a cassette deck to some recording to another organizer. Okay, so he was playing a recording to an organizer, that artist. So I said, "ये किसका तबला है?" "मेरा तबला है," he tells me. I said, "अच्छा." So, and when I closed the door and I went out, he again played the thing, and I said, and I heard it from outside, "This is my recording." that he
No
was
way.
that organizer. So I again opened the door and because it was not closed, I just kind of,
Huh.
so I said, ये आपका तबला है? ये तो मेरा तबला है, मैंने यहाँ पे ये प्रोग्राम में बजाया था, तो ये आप रिकॉर्डिंग इनको क्यों सुना रहे हैं अपना बोल के? So, अरे आपको क्या है, ये तो हमने बजाया है. Now obviously that organizer understood and he got up and he came to me and he said, माफी चाहता हूँ कि he tried to this thing, I'd like to call you for this concert.
Wow.
So
But
that
that's good
was
to
one
well,
time.
yeah, but how many times you weren't crossing in the corridor, right?
Exactly. Even now, if you go online, you will see a girl who puts my name in her title.
Really?
Yeah. She doesn't, you can see the video online. She doesn't put her name. She puts my name. And the video gets popular. Now, I find that so strange that YouTube should not do anything about it. We pointed it out to YouTube, but they've done nothing about it. So, this is so imposter syndrome is happening repeatedly. People, like I told you, they, even about the playing with 2, 3 tablas,
Right.
some of the other stuff that, the storytelling, the epic tabla stories, and all these things. But I look at it this way that it's good, I mean, people are learning from each other, and that's nice.
Anuradha ji, have you ever felt, have there been times where it just felt too much of a fight all the time that it's time to just leave, try something else,
I'm
not
not a quitter. I never have been. Firstly, I have never, by God's grace, my mother used to say one thing about me. She used to say कि तुम्हारे अंदर कुछ खास शक्ति आती है काम करने की. कुछ खास शक्ति है. Because you won't believe, even after I come after a concert, I may have traveled, done whatever, I'll come back at night, and after I've had my dinner, I'll still come and practice.
really.
Why? Because I realized I can be better. There's that quest to always do more. And that passion for the instrument, the passion for what I can do more, is so much greater than the pain of all the other things that happen around me, that I don't look at the negatives. It's always been my approach in life. I look at a glass half full, not half empty. That's always been me. I never look at the negativity.
I think that's sort of the only way to kind of keep going, especially at a time. Tell me, Anuradha ji, as you look around today, obviously things are easier. Some things are still hard. In what ways do you think things have changed? But more importantly, in what ways do you think it still needs to change?
See, change is something that there are many things can change that can be changed. But like, for example, when I brought in Recharge, okay, I'll tell you about this other band of mine.
Right.
And Recharge is something which made me realize, and I'll tell you a sort of the fear of failure you talked about earlier than this. I have never, one, I'm not a quitter. Secondly, yes, I have had the fear of failure sometimes. For example, when I was performing at the Woodstock Festival,
Right.
facing an audience of 400,000 fans and being the only representation of India.
Right.
Can you imagine the pressure?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was before we went on the stage, I had just seen a band before me get a beer bottle smashed on their face. Why? Because the audience didn't like their playing. Okay? The audience was so unruly. And obviously 400,000, it's impossible to control them. And so that artist was performing it was a metal band. And right after them was our concert. So somebody in the audience didn't like their performance, and he threw a beer bottle at their face, and it smashed on the stage. And obviously they came and they cleared it off and whatever they did and all that happened. Now, this had happened just before we were going to go on the stage. Imagine. Now I
So now
hear
you're walking out to an audience that's already charged
inflamed.
and
Yeah.
upset. Yeah.
They're upset. And it wasn't one beer bottle, it was a couple of beer bottles that landed up. Because one guy did it and the rest of them
Yeah,
also
yeah.
started.
Monkey see, monkey do. Correct.
It all was like who can do better,
Yeah.
you know. So uh, that was definitely a fear of, there was a fear of failure, that okay, I'm going to get a beer bottle on my face, and I'm definitely not looking forward to that. And unlike a guitarist, I can, a guitarist may duck or do something. I'm stuck on the tabla, I can't move very much, I can't run. So what do I do? But I guess I have always done a lot of self appraisal, and that's been always me. What I talk about Chintan Manan is self
Yeah.
appraisal. Uh, what, and I have lived my life according to 3 C's and 3 D's, which I hold very close to my heart. The
Good
three
job.
C's are commitment, creativity, and curiosity. So always be curious about doing
Yes.
more, right? Like you say, stay hungry, stay foolish, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like
100%
like that.
curiosity is one of the most important things, I think, even today, as we go into an AI era.
Yeah.
Curiosity is going to be the one thing that keeps you relevant.
And only if you're curious can you beat AI. And only if you're creative can you beat AI.
Yeah.
Because the only way you can do better than AI, and
Yeah.
what AI can't do, is the creativity element. And
Yes.
that is what music gives you, that edge that you learn, or any art. Because
Yeah.
if you learn to think creatively and you learn to think in a different way, is when you can approach a solution differently. That out of box thinking can then happen. So I think so. Now, where did recharge come from? If you
Yeah.
think about it, it came from the fact that I was invited to speak and to teach at New England Conservatory,
Okay.
right? And where I was the artist in residence. And the New England Conservatory is the biggest music school of the US, the most prestigious school,
Yeah.
with the Berkeley School and all that. So I was teaching at all these schools, at MIT, at Berkeley, at all these places. And when I would go and teach, I would go and attend the lectures of the others also as a student. And I would teach, and that interaction, I learned a lot about the jazz, African. I would spend hours together in the Harvard Library listening to jazz and listening to, and every evening go and listening to jazz and playing with jazz. And then I started working with Latin musicians and playing African music. And then I got very interested in playing a lot of the African drums. And so then I started so that's when I decided that, okay, I'm going to put a lot of that distilled experience. I wouldn't call it knowledge, because knowledge, I'm a student. I can't have knowledge. I'm only that much. Okay. But what I can do is that distilled information that I got from all the people in my interactions and in my listening to music is what I put into Recharge. So if you listen to Recharge, it has a lot of elements, African, Latin music, a lot of percussion. All the percussion has been played by me. There are about um, 60 or 70 tracks of percussion.
Oh, wow.
And there are about 10 or 12 percussion instruments I've personally played in that album. And that album was the chart buster for, it was the top selling fusion album in 14 and 15. So,
Anyway, as you approach, a lot of your global sound and your, the work where you have brought in so much scale in terms of just music and what you're able to include in it, and also the experimentation. How do you find that balance between tradition and experimentation? Because that also, I mean, there's one part of you that is, um, what everyone has always known, the classical tabla maestro. Then there is the sort of person who's pushing the boundaries, doing things that haven't been done before, experimenting. How do you, balance the two, but also how do people react to you stepping outside the boundaries of classical music?
Initially, there was a little bit of a discouragement that why are you doing this? You should only stick to classical music. And my point was that if I stick to the rules of classical music, right? What is classical music? I mean, if you look at it, classical music is the basis of all music. You listen to all the film songs of Lataji, Mohammad Rafi, Kishore Kumar, R.D. Burman, they are all based on classical ragas.
Yeah.
Are any of them based on film ragas? Is there anything like film ragas or Bollywood ragas? No. Why? Because classical is something that's going to last forever. Everything else will come and go. It's a trend.
And there's sort of applications and manifestations of those.
They are manifestations, and that's good. Experimentation is what makes human beings unique, and they should continue to do that. But ultimately, we have to realize that. So when I was telling you earlier about the 3 C's, the
Right.
3 D's in my life are about discipline, domain knowledge, and dedication. So the discipline is what? About your practice, about your thinking, about the way you live your life with values, with integrity. That's the discipline. Very important to have integrity in your work, because there are always shortcuts in life possible. But I have never chosen that. Like, I had many opportunities to make it big in a wrong way. And I mean in a wrong way. But I consciously chose not to go that path, because I've always believed that your passion should be larger than your gains. Your ethics is what you go with. Your respect is what you live with. And ultimately, you don't go with anything, you leave everything here only. But the only thing that you have is respect that you'll go with, right? So you should live your life with respect and with integrity. So, and the second part is the domain knowledge. Now, if your domain knowledge is strong, what's your domain knowledge? In my case, it's classical music, right? In whoever's case, it's their core knowledge. If your domain knowledge is strong, nothing in the world can uproot you, right? Even for the people who are threatened now with AI, if their domain knowledge in a particular area of coding, for example, is strong, they will be smarter than all the AIs put together, because they would have had the foundation that an AI is built on.
No, absolutely. And I think also the application of original thought. And I don't think, and I think the creative fields are going to find themselves a little bit more protected in that for it. Because at the end of the day, everything else is going to be synthesized, but original thought is still going to come from human intelligence.
And so that domain knowledge, when I use it, for example, I'm giving an example of recharge, because that's something that your listeners can listen to.
Right.
For example, in one of my tracks in Recharge, I think it's called Desire, I have played the Latin samba groove on the tabla, right? The Latin samba groove, I played it on the tabla. There's some places where I've played a flamenco on the tabla. There's some other places where I've played a dhol, the dhol and the big folk music sort of dhol that's played in that.
Yes.
And I've played that on a djembe. It sounds like a dhol, but I've actually used djembe for it. And reason I've been able to play all these different things and get that different sound is, again, because of probably the whole attention to, because of my classical training and the strong domain knowledge, I can apply that information into different ways. My training being so strong, it's like a superbly trained commando, and can respond in every situation.
Oh my God. I think that's a great parallel. Always.
Yeah, because on stage we are like firefighting.
Yeah.
As a musician,
Always alert.
as a musician, honestly, I have played with so many great masters, but the funny part is they never warn me in advance what they're going to do, and they'll always throw a challenge on me at me on the stage. And when I tell them after the concert, आपने नहीं बताया आप 13 मात्रा बजाने वाले हैं और you're going to play such a complicated rhythm cycle, आपको बताने की जरूरत नहीं, आप कर लोगे, हमको मालूम है. Now that confidence comes from the domain knowledge that I have worked on for years and years and years to strengthen, right? With discipline and with dedication. So that sort of completes the 3 C's and the D's that sort of embody the way I work, the way I approach my work with that. So for
I
me,
think that's terrific. And I think a lot of youngsters need to be reminded of that. Because I think we are in a generation that's looking for a shorter, quicker.
exactly. And that's where I'd like to tell for this generation that, many times people are more focused on the money that they're going to get out of a particular work or a profession or a engagement. But I mean, when I got into this profession, I have literally toughened myself for the long run. I know that things are not easy as a profession. I was actually doing science. I was a topper science student. I got into Ruparel College,
Wow.
right, which is the top science school.
Yeah.
Right?
Impossible to get into unless you were like 99 plus.
Yeah. So that's the kind of marks I had. I got into that. I did my master's after that in music also. I topped the university in that also. So I think education is the very, very strong point that I always emphasize.
Yes.
You know, and the passion, like a lot of people tell me, "Arey, what's the need to do all this? How is that going to help you?" I think the staying power. Today, what we are lacking is patience.
Yeah.
We want to scroll through everything in life. We don't want to even go skin deep.
Yes.
We want to scroll through for that 0.01 second. And that is where we are losing that depth as human beings, because that's what separates us. It's our ability to think, to feel, to experience. And if we want to grow and genuinely progress, we shouldn't be thinking about the money. We should be thinking about the learning. Trust me, I mean, I have played in concerts where I actually spent money to reach there because there was no flight, there was no train, there was no way to reach. Everything got cancelled. There was an earthquake, but I still had to reach there. So how did I reach there? Chartered a plane and reached there. I didn't need to. There was an earthquake. Everything was cancelled. I could very well have said, sorry, I can't make it. And nobody would have said anything. After all, it's an earthquake, right? What can you do about that? But for me, a commitment is a commitment. In 102 degrees fever, 104 degrees fever, I have performed. Not one concert, 3, 4, 5 concerts, 10 concerts in a row. Why? I didn't need to do it. It wasn't the money. It was pure commitment and passion. So for the youngsters who are starting their career, I just like to say there's one thing that's bigger than everything else, and that's your passion. If you have a passion, you'll sail through life. And if it's only about money, I'm sorry, everything's going to be tough for you.
I tell everybody you have to do the hard work. The hard work will pay for itself.
Exactly. But first start giving. Na?
Yeah.
The problem is that we think about what is the ROI. But pehle dena to seekho na, mera bhai.
Okay, Anuradha ji, there's a larger conversation, right, about who's going to carry forward this art form, who's going to, uh, you know, be now the face of it, the representative. And one of the things that I've noticed is I'm not certain that women are still being included in these conversations
They're
or
not.
in consideration. What would it take for that to change meaningfully?
I think it's so, unfortunately, deep rooted. It is so deep rooted uh, that I don't know what it will take. But yeah, you're right. I mean, things are, you look at so many of the music festivals, I don't see so many women getting opportunity. I see the same artists performing in festivals everywhere. So there is not only about women, but I would say a lack of parity everywhere. A lack of parity. Even for awards, they will consider people who are old to be good for awards, but not consider their work as a reason to give the award them. So the young people feel discouraged. So unless we come to a certain age, we're not going to get awarded.
Yeah.
So a lot of these systemic changes have to come in, and that's probably, it's I don't know what it will take. I'm trying to, through in my efforts, what I try to do is through Sri Shakti, through my band Epic Tabla Stories, through Recharge. I get in a lot of folk, classical, fusion musicians. So my idea has always been about getting more inclusivity and and diversity. So I get in folk musicians, I play with flamenco, I play with jazz, I do all that. I played with the Vienna Jazz, with the Vienna Boys Choir, for example. I played with Stanley Jordan, who's great bass guitarist, you know, one of the greatest. So um, all these collaborations definitely help. I think more organizations supporting women or identifying those women who are not just looking out for themselves, but who have brought in change that have affected and helped others. You know, uh, like you very well said in the introduction, that that has uh, my two pennies of work have helped to open out the field.
A
Have
hundred percent.
you know?
I mean,
Uh,
I think you're underplaying that. Tell me, Anuradha ji, when it comes to gatekeeping and the pay gap, has it changed? I mean, I'm assuming it's. I mean, I feel like sure women are included and paid much better, uh, but the pay gap still exists, right?
does it exist in the corporate world?
Yes, it exists absolutely, and I'm sure if so does gatekeeping. Um, but how? I mean, are there at least conversations around it?
No. You Some things are taboo, and there are no conversations, because see, conversations can happen when there are more women, when there are more like-minded people, when there is a desire for change that is, a sort of a quiet conversation then happens. But it's not going to be
Because
there.
I think we've seen a couple of artists who sort of brought it up, and I think they get painted inconvenient.
There you are. See,
So
if they talk about it, then nobody wants to take them, so they are penalized for being
vocal.
helpful. Actually, what they are doing is to talk to sensitize people that, look, guys, things need to change.
Yeah, you have to have many conversations before somebody is going to say, huh, maybe we do need to do something
Consider.
about it. And then there'll be a whole phase of maybe we need to do.
Yeah.
I 100%. Um, you know, in as a retrospective, and I'm conscious that I think we've gone on much longer than I requested in terms of time, and thank you for indulging us. But when it comes to as a retrospective, what do you wish you knew that you know today when you were starting out as a youngster?
I wish that I knew that the field was so hard. I wish I knew that the field was about lineage and about I wish I knew some of the problems. I wish I knew them. I was too much into the joy of playing and performing and trying new things and challenging myself every day. I
Yeah.
was too much into all that. But if I had, so I mean, I wish I had known things were so difficult, that it was lineage that was more important than talent. If I had known that, things would have been different for me, because I know that I had many uh, opportunities to do other things which are more certain, money making, blah blah blah. But
Dependable.
and definitely cool life. But I think I don't have any regrets, for the simple reason that I think somebody has to bail the cat, and also I think the love and the passion of it,
Yeah.
and the fact that I'm always trying to do new things. I'm trying to reimagine a familiar thing into something different, and that keeps me ticking. Like, for example, now when I'm doing uh, the tabla sing stories, or when I'm doing epic tabla stories, where
Right.
the mythology is retold through rhythm. Now that's a completely new thing which I've done, and people are like blown away, because uh, people are interested in our mythology. They don't know about it. They know
Yes.
why. They know that Diwali mein you have to burst crackers, but why do you burst crackers? What's the story behind that story?
Right.
There is a story behind the story, and people don't know that. And I have been, so what I try to do in my Ramayana and Tabla, which I present, is the
Right.
entire story of the Ramayana on Tabla, bringing out all the navarasas, the emotions, and the story about character development. So, because I look at all these stories as essentially character development stories. Even if you look at a simple story of a tortoise and hare, it's a character development story. It's a management lesson.
Yeah. Also, I think, the reality is we say this phrase so often, I'm off my rhythm. Or, because you have a rhythm to your life, and sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's fast, sometimes you've got teasy going on, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can understand how incredibly sort of synchronized it could be to the story that you're telling and the character that you're developing.
In fact, whenever I feel, whenever it is that I have felt dissuaded, the one thing that has healed me is tabla. The one thing that has healed me when I have gone through the worst challenges in my life and the worst setbacks and the grief in my life is tabla. And because I realized that, wow, this instrument has a hidden potential, not just of telling stories, which I've been doing, but also healing people. So I have also started something very new, and it's called the Healing Tabla Experience. And the Healing Tabla Experience is about essentially correcting the rhythm that when you said, no, you're out of rhythm,
Yes.
right? So what is rhythm? It's in our heart. It's in our lives around us. We mess up with the environment when we say the biorhythm's off, right? Right? Or we talking or we not environment, but when we're talking of biorhythms, or we're talking of the environment, etc., and we're talking of our own heart. So the healing tabla experience essentially is about bringing all those, connecting you to the ancient tabla rhythms that
Right.
actually work with your chakras to realign them and to heal them from within. So that's when you come completely into शून्य state. आप कहते हैं ना शून्य. आज हमारी जिंदगी में there's so much of, we have an information overload. You put on the phone, you have 20,000 reels coming. You put on the internet, you're bombarded. You put on the TV channels, you're bombarded. You're bombarded everywhere. Where are you in the middle of all that chaos?
In fact, after we finish recording, I will tell you about a youngster who's actually doing something with healing sound as well. So I would love to connect you with her. Anuradha ji, one of the things that we do before we wrap up is we try and do a shout out to two women that you think are changing the game in the space of entertainment. It could be in tabla, it could be in music, it could be even in film. Or gaming. So, if there's anybody that you think deserves a shout out so that they can be in the shortlist for next year's Game Changer list as well, and we can include them.
I'll have a think at that because
that's fine. You can even send us an email or you can send me a message and share the names with us. But really, Anuradha ji, thank you so much for your time and your, the sharing your knowledge, because your journey reminds us, I think, that mastery is not just about excellence. It's really about persistence, about building where there's no structure, about creating space, not just for yourself, but also for so many others that will follow in your footsteps. Because you haven't just played the tabla, you have expanded what it represents and who it belongs to. So thank you so much for being a part of Hungama Game Changers. Thank you so much for being a game changer.
Thank you so much for considering me as a game changer. And, I recently did a TED program also on that, where they invited me to speak and as a change maker. And I'm so happy that, when platforms like yourselves and TED and so many others, NMIMS invite me, I'm happy that there's a keenness to pass on a little bit of whatever I've experienced to others. And there's so much of an acknowledgement and love. And that's why I always say the media has always supported me. And, and especially even corporates that have seen my passion and have supported me in times when I have reached out to the rest of the world to help them. Corporates have also reached out. And, I also do these workshops of wellness for corporates. So they have seen the passion with which I do this selflessly. And then they themselves say, can we give some money? And I said, sure, if you want to.
Yes. That's always a great thing, especially when they are supporting the arts. So I think that's fantastic.
Yes, that's
and to everyone listening, this was Hungama Game Changers, where we bring you stories of women shaping music, video, and gaming in ways that are both visible and invisible, but always impactful. Tune in more for more conversations.
In conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music, and gaming. Only on Hungama's Women Game Changers podcast.